just 4 years, America's southern border went from the most secure in modern history to the most chaotic. 2.5 million encounters in a single year. That is where this story begins. On January 20th, 2021, President Joe Biden signed a series of executive orders that fundamentally transformed how America enforced its immigration laws. Within hours, construction on the border wall halted. Contractors were ordered to stand down. Billions of dollars in equipment sat idle in the desert. The Remain in Mexico policy, formerly known as the Migrant Protection Protocols, was suspended by executive order. That policy, which had required asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their cases were processed, had been a cornerstone of border security. Under it, illegal crossings had dropped to a 45-year low. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, a man who would later be impeached by the House of Representatives for willful refusal to enforce the law, oversaw the systematic dismantling of every effective border tool the country had built. Remain in Mexico, gone. The border wall, halted. And then came the end of Title 42, the public health order that had allowed Border Patrol to rapidly expel migrants. Its termination on May 11, 2023, triggered a human wave that overwhelmed every processing facility from San Diego to Brownsville. Within weeks, holding facilities built for 1,000 people were holding 10,000. Customs and Border Protection reported its agents were spending more time on paperwork than on patrol. The border was open. Everybody knew it. Let us talk about the data, because numbers do not spin. In fiscal year 2021, Biden's first year in office, there were 1.7 million encounters at the southern border. That was already a record. The following year, FY 2022, that number climbed to 2.2 million. And in FY 2023, Customs and Border Protection recorded 2.4 million encounters, the highest single-year total in the history of the agency. But here's the number the mainstream press will not talk about: the gotaways. Border Patrol estimates that in FY 2022 alone, over 599,000 individuals crossed the border without being apprehended. In FY 2023, that number was nearly 670,000. Over the Biden term, total gotaway estimates exceed 2 million people. 2 million individuals who entered this country illegally and whose identities, backgrounds, and intentions are completely unknown. Among those known encounters, Border Patrol documented individuals from over 170 countries, not just from Central America, but from China, Russia, Iran, and nations on the State Department's terrorism watch list. Customs and Border Protection confirmed over 160 known or suspected terrorists apprehended at the southern border in FY 2023 alone. 160 people who matched names on federal terrorism databases. Caught. The ones who were not caught, we will never know. There is no more devastating consequence of an unsecured border than the fentanyl crisis. And these numbers should make every American furious. In 2022, over 110,000 Americans died of drug overdoses, the highest number ever recorded in a single year. The Centers for Disease Control confirmed that synthetic opioids, primarily fentanyl, were responsible for 73% of those deaths. That is over 80,000 American lives gone in a single year. The Drug Enforcement Administration has been explicit. 2 Mexican cartels, the Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, are responsible for the vast majority of fentanyl produced and smuggled into the United States. The primary entry point is the southern border. In FY 2023, Border Patrol seized over 27,000 pounds of fentanyl, enough to kill every man, woman, and child in America more than 100 times over. And that is just what they caught. DEA Administrator Ann Milgram testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee that fentanyl is killing Americans in every state, in every county, in every community. Every single community. While Washington argued about pronouns, the cartels ran an industrial-scale death pipeline through America's wide-open southern border. When the federal government abdicated its constitutional duty to secure the border, states stepped into the void. In March 2021, Texas Governor Greg Abbott launched Operation Lone Star, a state-funded border security initiative that deployed National Guard troops and Texas Department of Public Safety officers to the Rio Grande Valley and other high-crossing zones. Over 2 years, Texas spent more than $4 billion of its own money on border security because Washington refused to act. Abbott made national headlines when he began busing migrants from Texas border towns to Washington, D.C., New York City, and Chicago. Over 100,000 migrants were transported to sanctuary cities that had long claimed open immigration as a virtue. When those migrants arrived, the sanctuary cities declared a crisis. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. In February 2024, the United States House of Representatives took the extraordinary step of impeaching Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, the first impeachment of a sitting cabinet secretary in 150 years. The articles charged him with willful refusal to comply with the law. But beyond politics and statistics, there are real Americans whose lives were shattered by decisions made in Washington. Laken Riley, 22 years old, a nursing student at Augusta University in Georgia, murdered while jogging near campus in February 2024. The man charged with her killing, a Venezuelan national who had illegally entered the United States through the southern border in 2022 and was released into the country with a notice to appear. ICE had not been notified. He was in the United States illegally. Laken Riley is dead. Jocelyn Nungare, 12 years old, from Houston, Texas. She went missing in June 2024. Her body was found in a creek 2 days later. 2 Venezuelan nationals, also in the country illegally, were charged with her murder, 12 years old. These are not statistics. These are daughters. These are the names that a complicit press spent years trying not to say, and they represent a pattern repeated in communities across this country. The financial cost is also staggering. The Federation for American Immigration Reform estimates illegal immigration costs American taxpayers $151 billion per year in healthcare, education, law enforcement, incarceration, and social services. That is $151 billion taken from American citizens to fund the consequences of a border policy that was chosen deliberately by people in power. On January 20th, 2025, President Donald Trump signed executive orders declaring a national emergency at the southern border. He reinstated Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. He deployed military personnel to the border. He invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, and he made one thing crystal clear: America would once again put Americans first. The border is fixable, the policies are known, the enforcement tools exist. What was missing for 4 years was the will to use them. America First Daily is committed to covering this story with the depth, the facts, and the accountability that the mainstream media refuses to provide. Every single day, we break down the political stories that matter most, the ones that affect your community, your family, and the future of this country. If you want the truth without the spin, subscribe right now. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. Share this with someone who needs to know what is actually happening. Because the more Americans who understand the truth, the harder it becomes for Washington to keep hiding it. This is America First Daily, and we are just getting started.